Hello, welcome to Get Energized.
You timed it right.
Yeah, and it's a special show this time. So we have a special guest. We usually have guests. Our guest today is a chinchilla because it's National Chinchilla Day. So we're gonna. He's hiding. He's eating here. Let's see if we can. You want a treat, bud? He'll come over. But we're going to play a game. We're going to use a little fun. It looks like a squirrel. Thank you for setting him up. So what we're going to talk about actually is we're going to use AWS recognition and the fact that you have ML models to adjust a little bit of the uniqueness that you may need to change. And can you even identify a chinchilla? We're going to play a game called Is That a Chinchilla? And then after that, we're going to talk some really cool stuff. We were gone for about a month out of unplanned things happen, right? But we are going to talk about Outposts, local zones, wavelengths, a bunch of edge computing, really cool stuff. So I think this will be fun. Thank you. You guys killed it last show. Perfect. So we're always happy to follow you, Jackie. Thank you. But before we start doing fun stuff, there he is. Well, hey, Evie.
Yeah.
That's Evie the chinchilla. Hey, mister. You want to show your beautiful face to the internet? It's National Chinchilla Day.
The ears are so big.
The ears are huge. Yeah. So here you go, buddy. Want a treat? There it goes. So, Evie. Weird animal. What are you? Let's get started with this. But first, energy drink. Dan, do you want to guess what it is? I know you won't guess. I know you won't.
So it's got to be something off-brand for you then, if I won't guess.
Oh, you think? Okay. Well, take a shot.
Is it an actual energy drink or is it like?
It is. It's a real energy drink. This is a real one.
You doing Monster again?
No, so not a choice. So we're on Twitch. I thought it would be fun. I saw this at the store. It's G Fuel, which is all over Twitch. It used to be a bit of a meme on it here, but it's got Pac-Man on it and it's 0 sugar.
That's pretty cool.
So Power Pellet Cherry Lollipop. There you go.
Does it name all the ghosts on the backside?
Can I name them or no?
Does it name them?
This is the sketch part, and it's actually a good call out. It's a little sketchy. Focus, Endurance, and Reaction are the names that I know. Inky, Blinky, Clyde. So a little off. Hi, Buckshot Bowie. Hello to you as well. So anyways, let's get going. Chat, feel free to play this game or call out if it just looks what the animal is. There's a bit of a trick to it, but that's fine. Let me open this up. Before I start, what I want to show you when I do this, we're going to use generic recognition. It's really easy to demo this. You can do this yourself. But let's say you have a lot of information about chinchillas. Your business is chinchilla related, okay? And you need to identify them a lot. You might train your own model and label things accordingly. And if you wanted to do that, recognition, which is a big, powerful ML tool to let you identify images, the contents inside of them here, there's a way to train and do that through the SDK. So that's called custom labels, and it's super powerful, and you might want to use it on such a case as a chinchilla because this is a weird little thing. So let me open this up, and we were going to play Is It a Chinchilla? We'll get recognition. Pull this over here. Share my screen. And I'll show you. Also, it's really, really simple to test this out. Play with it if you want to do it. This is just inside of the console. If you've never looked at recognition, you just click Try Demo. And without working with the SDK, without setting an app, you can do this. So let's go. Does recognition know what a chinchilla is? All right. Chin 0. Looks like a chinchilla to me, okay? Let's see. Oh, really close, really close. So we have 95.5% chinchilla. It picked rat. So we even have guessing of a rat, right?
It's close though. I mean, look at how close rat.
Very close.
Are though.
It's very close. But what I think is cool. So animal, mammal, rodent, and this is a bit of a niche animal, right? And very, very close. Deciding between one or the other, but there you go. It picked rat in this particular case. Let's try another. Now, this is an interesting one. Outdoors, very strange shape. Very strange shape. What do we got? Analyzing. It again thinks it's a rat. So again, really powerful. It's picked up. But here's the cool stuff. It knows it's a rodent for sure, right? And this is without training or customizing or doing anything. We're picking up really tight, like 1% of it being a rat over a chinchilla. I also picked interesting pictures to kind of trick it out. Now, this is weird to me. This is a funny one.
It's hard to identify.
This is hard to identify, and it's outside, and there's hay. A lot of funny business going on here. Chinchilla. It knows it's a chinchilla.
Oh, that not kangaroo.
It thinks a kangaroo, secondly. So I guess I can see that, to be totally honest with you. I can see the kind of kangaroo shape and the arms out here. So, but
Is
not
it kangaroo over rat?
yeah, well, that's what I'm going to say. It's a body shape thing, but that's actually really cool because it's sure it's a chinchilla in rodent, right? And that's without training. This is out the box. Pretty powerful. I think that's really neat.
I find it funny that it thinks it's a 99.9% it's a rodent, but
Yeah.
the second thing down is a kangaroo.
Well, outside of that family, inside a mammal. So actually, here's a good time to call it out. Remember in your responses, and you can do some processing and decide in recognition what part of this you want, but you have the ability to look inside of kind of hierarchies of what you have here. So if we looked at a rodent, right, it says it's a chinchilla. The odds are, if it's certain it's a rodent, whatever it's identifying in that is to pick here, and you take a chinchilla. Plus, I don't think you would even look at an 82% certain confidence over 95%. So we'll do 2 more of these, and then we'll start the actual enterprise content for you today. But this is funny. I don't know if chat wants to guess what this animal is, but there you go. Is it a chinchilla? It's a baby. Yeah, you're right, Dan. It's a baby chinchilla. And I'm not shocked that it didn't get it, but recognition did something very, very cool. Very, very cool. You notice it thinks it's a pet. Yeah, pet. Yeah, okay, pet. So pet. This is signifying it's indoors. So it already knows there's an animal indoors, and there's something different to it being outside and being like a wildlife photo already, right? And inside, there's all kinds of classifications you can look at in response, but it actually thinks a hamster. I would have thought a hamster as well if I didn't see baby chinchillas.
I would have guessed hamster, actually.
It looks a ton like a hamster. It's not even funny. So, but also it was only fairly certain it was a hamster. Final one. Uncommon color, white background. I think this will trick it.
It's gonna have to have pet. My guess is they're gonna think it's a pet too.
It does think it's a pet. It actually thinks it's a cat. So it thinks it's a cat. I get it. I get it. But notice 96.3% for a cat, 94% for a chinchilla. So if I was working,
it was really close.
It's really close to begin with. And if I was in a model, I would look at what was the subcategory of a rodent rather than looking at just mammal. So there you go.
If you have 99.9% sure it's a rodent, then you would probably eliminate cat and go with chinchilla.
Exactly. And more importantly, I dropped the link in there already, but you can custom label things and train your own model without having to do all the undifferentiated, not even undifferentiated, but very complicated ML related to training and standing up and running this workload. You can have an image recognition that you just train based on some sets of models here. And if it's a bunch of chinchilla pictures, you're going to skew more towards chinchilla there. So perfect. But that's our fun part for today, for the holiday.
I mean, that's our fun part. We're going to do more fun.
Thank you for calling up. I was waiting to see if you were listening. Yeah, no. So here's the industrial part, right? We're going to talk about edge computing and local zones. And I think this is really cool stuff. I'm actually very excited to do this here. I'm going to talk low latency tech. We're in a couple slides and then a full demo of it here. But what we're looking at is today called Outposts, Local Zones, and Wavelengths. Oh my, right? Okay, so there's 3 options, but in context of today we're talking about, we're not going to talk a whole lot about wavelengths. I will explain the difference because something that comes up a lot is just the general confusion of working across all these patterns.
And in my time at AWS here, I think these 3 things are sometimes confused.
Yeah,
a lot of the time, like if sometimes people feel them as like black boxes. So this is hopefully helps everybody else here with this technology.
This is going to try. I'm summarizing some of this for you, just so you know what it is, even if you haven't seen it. Then we'll demo it. That's exactly what Dan's getting at. So wavelength. If you think wavelength, what you're looking at here and you're talking about is high bandwidth, ultra low latency, 5G. So remember the 5G component of this, right? And that's big for networking and for edge computing. In a case, we're on Twitch right now. I've been playing a ton of Street Fighter Mobile myself. Mobile gaming plays into a role here too, right? If I want really low latency, if I have Chun-Li fighting M. Bison right now and I'm going on this here, low latency matters, and I can do that at edge compute on a more localized network that's ideal for the hops related to 5G. AR, VR services obviously play into that as well. But at an industrial level, and you want to think of it, why would I care about wavelengths here? IoT, live media production closer to the source, all this will reduce that latency. And the IoT industrial aspect is really important because, again, when you're talking factory floors, machinery, anything like that, the faster results, if you're pulling this in, all the better.
Usually you want to have AWS Wavelength. You want to think of it as the industrial IoT. That should be the first thing that you jump to.
Well, I would 5G. 5G is the thing to take first of it and keep that in mind because there is green grass and stuff. Outposts. So this is the meat. What we're going to talk about: outposts versus local zones, mostly right now. Outposts. You're looking at it like, why is there a physical picture of this thing? That's what your servers are. Like you get this from AWS, the physical server. It is an extension of your VPC on premise versus being in the cloud. So you're literally taking this stuff and you have hardware provided to you by AWS in your data center where you're powering and running and physical security, all that stuff's here, right? You're doing that with this particular hardware. And it's an extension that now makes you a hybrid environment of running that locally, easily, and without any kind of conversion or integration work right back into the AWS cloud. And that's how you think about an outpost in that.
So piece. When would you use outposts?
Good question. We're going to talk about kind of the use case on this on the next slide after that. Let me first distinguish and confuse you even more. Local zones. So a local zone is compute, storage, database, all of that close to a population. So the way to think of a local zone, it's not a region, right? It's not, there are closer AWS regions. This particular case is something that is not a full region, but it has some offerings closer to a particular user base or industry. We're in Houston. We're really close to oil, energy. A lot of the larger oil and gas orgs that are here, a lot of renewables in place here. And so there's some particular needs that make sense in Houston. Some EC2, EBS, that kind of thing. And we will show today how easy it is to get started with this versus the items that you would otherwise see. Putting a giant outpost behind me is a lot more of a commitment, right, than working with a local zone. But we can show you how you can optimize those local zones.
Yeah, because you don't always want to pay for an on-premises server in your...
No. Most people can't. And for most cases, right, even smaller cases. In enterprise, you can. Does it meet the requirements? We have a full suite of offering for that particular purpose. But now the use cases, you asked about this. Here's how you think about it. Why would I want a giant rack from AWS that extends my hybrid cloud or builds a hybrid cloud I didn't have before? Well, you want low latency, right? Single digit millisecond. And that's good for real time and on processing. Again, we mentioned manufacturing, process control, healthcare. These are all cases where, closer to the source matters. And often tied to this bullet below it here from data processing is a lot of data, fast velocity, close where this matters. That's a good case for having some sort of hybrid on-premise connectivity that you then send to the cloud for other use cases, right? One we see in energy, data residency. So there are plenty of cases in which operations in some countries says the data that you're dealing with stays in the country here, right? Well, when you're in the cloud, that can be difficult to set up and then to maintain, and other human error can be introduced. But you can have a case of all processing stays in this server on premise here while still integrating with a bunch of AWS services you're familiar with developing, using in other examples here. So what could other AWS customers use at AWS Outposts? Let's look at your site. So there's select services that are basically inside of Outposts that's available for you in those particular cases here. I can actually, Dan, if you want to pull up the Outpost service link while we do that, that would be good. But no, you don't need if you don't. But that's a good link that we can share with you. The last couple items I'll cover on this, just because it frames what we're looking at today. Cloud migrations, often, there's a show on here about migrations, right? There's a lot to that. But one approach also is extending a hybrid network, getting used to the AWS ecosystem, and then going ahead and taking this kind of cloud migration approach with your hybrid outposts in a server, so in a server room, right? And that, of course, brings you to hybrid cloud. I've already been talking hybrid cloud. I just have it there again so that you think of it this way. In general, at an enterprise, to do peak processing, do close to source, that single tiny millisecond latency, you're looking at outposts to handle that kind of thing, right? Now, what's the happy medium and all of this kind of thing? Local zones comes into play for many customers. So why the local zone is different in that case? Well, large orgs have server rooms or the places here. They also just have people off-site They might not have an existing data center in a location where there's a lot of people doing work. This is basically how these existed originally. And without investing a footprint, without standing up that kind of infrastructure, you can use a local zone. And that's going to give you very low latency still and be closer to you without investing in that physical component. That's the differentiator. A local zone doesn't have that physical component for you, that server coming in. And you'll see a lot of, so video game streaming while we're sitting here right now obviously has a use case here, but there's other ones as well, right? I just bring that up because it's Twitch and we're looking at it here. But obviously any case where you don't want that commitment, well, it's a big physical rack behind you, right? You instead can use a local zone. And here's the really cool part. It's really easy to get started with it and explore it. So that's what we're going to demo in a second. The final slide to take away, because these are a lot of differences here. This is how I distill it and think, and when I talk to others.
Yeah, why would you pick each one?
Yeah, why would you pick each one? And so the first thing I ask myself often is like, is there a hybrid environment? Is that a target? Is that something you're looking at here? If it's hybrid, you're thinking realistically here, things like Outposts are pretty attractive in that part. Are you okay to commit to 1, 2, 3 years of this Outpost service physically at your data center, right? That's another part of it here. There's a commitment involved in that. And then do you have the facilities to handle it, right? So you have data center staff, you have power, this is all secured, everything's handled, this place. That's typically its own use case versus a lot of others, right? Now, if you need low latency fast, right? And you don't want commitment, but maybe you have a game server or you have something else, or one of your business users are more offsite and they need a closer, faster latency connection between this here. You might have an instance where you need an EC2 just a little closer. You can deploy that in a local zone rather than the region itself. And that's no commitment. That's just it existing. And we'll show how easy that is here now. But the last little 3 here, wavelength, think, like Dan said, think IoT, 5G devices. Now there's stuff like autonomous cars and connections that come out of this here that utilize that. But, in a general perspective of what we're talking about, 5G IoT, right? Local zones, if you're going to think of them again, you need the ultra low latency, but you don't have an on-premise data center, right? You're not physically doing something. You don't have it. You don't want it. Local zone. And then Outposts, you need seamless integration between AWS workloads, and you need to stay on-prem for some reason. That's the easiest way to distinguish this. And now how you can get started is the cool part. So I think let's just demo that.
So Lee, you can dump the links. I send you the links.
Oh, cool. Thank you, sir. Let's put a couple links in. Here's the general. Here's just Outposts, and you can go to the FAQs. You can start to look at the actual availability of items there, right? Here's Wavelength as well. Whoops. Come on, Wavelength. Wavelength, you might want to look around it if you're just interested in the 5G perspective, but we're not going to necessarily demo that right now. Come on. There you go. And then this one I'm actually about to dump in here anyways to show you, but we're going to explore the actual local zone component here and show you how you can get started and work that into your workload. But start to learn, and just if you want to go deeper into any one of these, those are the landing pages to dig through them. Now, the cool ones, as far as I'm concerned here, we're what we're all to work on here. This is actually a getting started tutorial you can do. It says 20 to 30 minutes, might be a little bit more, but you can explore local zones in these particular workload and just assess, like, what is my latency actually like? How complicated is it? It'll show you it's actually very similar conceptually to what you do already. So let me grab this and drop it into chat and Twitch here. That should work for you. Now, what you got there is some pretty neat stuff. Grab the popcorn. This is cool, I promise.
This is good. I recommend everybody doing this.
Yeah, I will put a caveat. You should do this. This is great work along. If you don't have them enabled right now, you will fill out a form to have this enabled in your account. I'll show you where that is. But just to get an idea what we're about to do, here's a website you can hit. Have fun. I noticed they changed it recently, so I think you can't spam it. But here's a latency test, and this is really cool. What this will show you is your local zones, right? And you'll see all the millisecond latency that you get out of them here. And now, again, we're in Houston. So if I scroll to Houston and look at it here, I would expect to see the lowest number. I see 19 milliseconds currently, right? Now, if I look at others, so Minneapolis is 68. If I go all the way around to something like India, we're looking in the 200s, right?
Still really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really cool. Like you're way out there and you're getting pretty cool performance. Perth is way up there though. Yeah, that's I think that was actually jitters when I had to reload this page. It's hopefully working for the rest of you now. It was not for me at first. The other last item to kind of look at here is compare that to regions, right? If we're looking at regions, and you'll notice they're all, I mean, still fast. It's really fast, right? But your higher numbers here than versus even these local zones when I'm kind of closer to Houston or I'm closer to Dallas, 24, right? That you're in this range where you're going to get faster performance if that's something that matters. So what we'll do, and if you follow along in this tutorial of the link that I dropped you, is you will stand this up in this local zone in your account, because once you set it up, you're fine. There's not a lot to it. And you'll interact with it like you would with any other subnet. So let's go and look at our, just to drop you here.
I just want to make sure, even with this, I would recommend the well-architected framework.
Oh, absolutely, right. So if something fails in a local
put in
zone,
redundancy,
yeah,
where you can.
Yeah, Dan wanted to mention that. I forgot to. The local zone, you're still going to build for redundancy, be aware of something going down. And what I dropped in here, and you can see on the screen right now, is just to call out that, from a low, it's not a full region, right? So there's not going to be expected the workloads of a full region. It also means there is not the full suite of service offerings that's in a region. It's a more local, tailored use case here. And so when I go to Houston, and I'm working in Houston, I have T3s, C5s, R5s. Those are what are available for me. Now, if I go out and look at that, let's go to my test account on Twitch here, where I will log in and see which MacBook AWS people use. Oh, I just have a MacBook Pro from like 2019. It's not super cool, man. Let's see. Actually, 2020 is from 2020. Never mind. But let me go over to EC2 and pull this over so you can see what this is like while you're clicking through those links. I won't stand it up live. I'll show you what happened. You probably, if you're working through the CLI because you're a dev all the time, you might not notice, but there's this zones button, right? I'm going to click into zones. This is where you enable all of it because it's not enabled by default. For instance, I went to Houston, right? And I manage this, enable it. Now, if you go and do this right now and you click enable and you click update zone, it's going to say, okay, fill out this form, please, for a request. And that typically takes, just a little bit of service time to get that validated and enabled in your account. Interesting, asking about the RAM. Oh, this is just a basic 16. Okay, so if we come back to the instances that are running now, what I enabled previously was an EC2 instance that's running this latency web app, right? Now, if I come out and I want to see what I have here, you'll see this T3 medium, right? And you'll notice that if I go to the availability zone, you see it deployed in Houston, not in just a region. So what actually happened in terms of setup is actually really, really, really cool. So let's go to look at a couple things to just call this out. So we know it's T3. We know it's here. It's in my default VPC in this particular account, right? And then you have a subnet. You'll notice it's the local zone subnet that I made, right? So if I go to something like clicking this subnet, what I had to do was just make sure that it's an extension of my VPC, because that's effectively what a local zone is. And if we click this guy here, come on. You'll see that it has a CIDR that I allocated to it at time of creation, like I would with other subnets here, that it is in the Houston availability zone, that's in my default VPC, that I have a route table. And that's all there is to it, because the first setup, and if you follow this tutorial, you'll come in and you'll take this VPC, you'll go to, for instance, looking inside of this here at the subnet, see the fact that my subnets inside this region, because it's default, consists of what's available in US East, but then also the local zone. And that local zone has a route table. The route table is set up into an internet gateway. And that's really all it takes. Once you do this, and once you define the local zone as that subnet, it's now part of your VPC and it just works there. So if you come back to your EC2 dashboard, like we are right here, I don't need to drag that. You'll see I have this instance up and running. If I wanted to make a new one, for instance, it's as simple as doing the same thing here. Now, remember, I sent that link of qualifiers. If you're looking through it, you have to select something that's available. If I picked a T2 and I click through here, it would say no such resource in the available, right? And it would fail. But if I go and do something like select a T3, T3 medium, something like this here, and I come down, when I'm creating it, I don't necessarily want to say there's no preference to the subnet right now. If I want to make sure that subnet I created, I would just go and select my local zone subnet that I made and use that. And that's it. And anything else I would manage, I would work with. It's a typical EC2 instance inside of this. And, I did that. And if you're doing that yourself following along, I actually got better. Look at even better.
Look how low that jitter is.
Yeah, 1.5 milliseconds of jitter. I mean, that's really, really consistent here. You 15, sub 15, hitting my server that I have up here. So pretty cool stuff. Frankly, you can see, and you can do this yourself just to test that it's working and what's available here, but not complicated to get started with. And I think that's the really big takeaway, right? Not the commitment of an Outpost, right? We're not working with 5G. So, you're not working through the partner to have this allocated, this sub bandwidth for you with inside a network. It's just if you need that lower latency and it's within these particular ACEs, you can do that. No commitment, just enable, give it a go. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Let's see. Thank you. No, I promise you, not a genius, just your average guy here. We do have a question though. So if the VPC is located in the US region, can I create instances in region? Okay. Okay. So VPC lattice. So there is a lot to this here. So when I mentioned that as a subnet, the way to think of these here is if you're going to extend and work across this here, you have a VPC somewhere. The VPC is a VPC. What you can do with the subnets inside that VPC inside of a region is just enabling this subnet. So anytime you're thinking of a normal subnet, right? That's your local zone in this particular case. There are some limitations. Actually, I pulled this page up because I had it because I thought someone would start it. If you want to look, this is actually, wait, is this the link I sent already? I think it is. But this is really, really good for you to take a gander at because, again, there are multiple offerings because there's multiple needs, right? Your need will be different depending on the workflow. And there will be some limitations to something like a local zone because it's not a full region versus, limitations even on, an outpost that you have outside here. So all truly depends. It comes down to your workflow. You can work with, solutions architects here at AWS. We exist to help, right? That's kind of the idea. But it is there. And if you want to get started on local zones, just click that zones button, go to manage, and fill out your form. I think, honestly, this is a good takeaway. And again, I'm just going to put this up because I know it tends to be a question that comes up just to remember. But when you really want to distinguish, if you just remember these, think the 5G IoT for wavelength, local zones, low latency, but nothing physical, outposts, on-premise, physical hardware. And
hold on, get my outpost, and then we'll.
I know. I think we should put in a request for an outpost. What do you think? I can fit Evie's cage behind me. I should be able to fit that. You want to come say hi, buddy? You want to do last? It's Chinchilla Day. This is your only go. No, not even a treat. He's genuinely tired. So there you go. It's been fun though. We were gone for a month. We will be back. We had some requests for topics, right? We also had requests for desks. That is Evie the Chinchilla. If he wants to come out, you want to come here? Come on over. Come say hi. You missed him if you came in a little late. It is nap time for him though, so we won't bug him. But it was National Chinchilla Day, and we played "Is It a Chinchilla" using AWS recognition. So if you want to see that, go watch the VOD. Dan, do you want to take a shot? Hold on, let me just give you full screen. Don't even do it yet. Don't even do it. Let's make sure this happens. Okay.
Give you full screen behind.
I won't do that for you. You got it. See, there you go. You're welcome. That's all. You had the pressure. You had to take the pressure. All right, so there you go. Okay, that's it. Everyone, be well. We will see you later. All right.
Take care.